We're back for another session on how to parent adult kids. My name is Blair Crossman with Waypoint Community Church. And we've just been kind of stacking things up together. And today I want to talk about maybe one of the bigger kind of tensions or pressures in the relationship. What happens when that adult kid starts displaying or living values that you didn't raise them with? It's not... this creates real tension in the relationship. And I guess I want to start by saying this happens in a lot of different ways, but all values aren't created equal. When I was young and I left my home, I started listening to music that my parents didn't like, and not just didn't like, they did not approve of this music. I was just asked, what kind of music was that? Anything that wasn't Christian praise music was considered out of bounds, and I started listening to anything and everything. And I understand now that those kinds of things, the music you listen to, your dress, TV experiences, all kinds of things end up in a gray pot. The scriptures don't specifically say, do this, do that on those issues. And so I call those squishy values. Those are values that I was raised with. I raised my kids with them too. And you'd hope that many of them would pass down, and sometimes they don't. In fact, it's so common that it doesn't. You can look at the generational differences that happen. It's a very common thing. But what's odd about this is that sometimes the squishy values are where conflicts happen. And it's generally the parents who are upset that the kids have left the squishy values behind, and there are all kinds of needless conflicts between family members over values that are unimportant. And you got to evaluate whether you're making a stand on something that's of substance or not, and a squishy value isn't. So in the cases of squishy values, what my wife and I do is we've decided to just shut our mouths. We don't comment on how they raise their kids. We don't comment on the entertainment that they choose to go to. We don't comment on that kind of stuff. If they ask us about it, we'll be happy to tell them why we've made the choices that we've made. But we showed them those values over a course of time with them living with us, and they chose something different. And we've got to find a way to give enough grace for them to make some different choices on the squishy stuff. But everything is not squishy. There are some beliefs, some values that the scriptures hold to very clearly that my wife and I value. And so because of that, when our kids start to depart from those, boy, tension and stress comes to the forefront. And I've seen 3 different ways where families have dealt with this, and 2 of them are not very good. The first unhealthy way is that a parent will look at that kid and just decide to adopt whatever value they've departed from, which I think is risky. It removes God from the equation where you've asked, am I honoring God by doing this or not? And many times I'll hear parents say, I'm doing this because I'm loving, and love can't be wrong. Well, I think if you decide to just untether all of your beliefs just to keep peace, you could be making a mistake. It will bite you later. A second thing that I've seen that is not great, I think it's much worse even, is a parent's attempt to use shame, guilt, control to try to put their kid back in line with their values. It becomes a kind of this brutal thing where in essence they say to them, I will withdraw my love from you unless you get in line. And I've seen this work with a few compliant kids, but the majority of the time this is going to backfire. They're not going to take this sitting down because they have the responsibility to make that decision, and they made a choice. And you're pressuring them to go the other direction is not going to help anything. And often it breaks the relationship, and you lose the ability to have any influence. You lose the long game. You're not going to be invited to have conversations, and when you choose to warn, it will just be seen as harping and nagging. I think there's a third choice. I think there's a third choice that allows you to respect that scripture that says love covers all things. I think there's a way for you to look at the values that you think are clearly laid out in scripture, and you hold to them. There are beliefs that you just hold to. There are things that Tracy and I believe and hold to that when our kids are around us, there's no compromise. When they're at our house, it's our rules, and they know it. There's no arguments about it. There's no nothing like that. It's just, this is our house, our rules, and they understand it. If we're going out to eat and I'm paying, it's my rules, and they understand it, and they really don't push back. If they don't like how the choices that we're making at that point, they could do something different. But when I'm in their house, it's their rules. And they know what I think. They know what I believe. And I'm not going to compromise on that, but I am going to respond with love to them. See, here's the conflict. Real love, I think, doesn't quibble on beliefs and values. I think you hold to those. That's why you raise the kids a certain way. It's why you believe certain things. But real love also acts towards people. And so when they choose a value that's not your value, you can still act in loving and caring ways for them. And what I hear from parents often during this kind of time in their lives is they're afraid their acts of love will come across as permissive, or it implies that I'm okay with the choice that they're making. My choices, my belief systems are explicit. They're not implicit. These are things that I chose to believe and hold to, and it's clear with the people around me. My acts of love are explicit. They're not implicit. You're going to see when I choose to love you or not, and they're not the same thing. It's not approval. And I think so many times we've been afraid to act with love towards our kids who have different values than us, and you're making a mistake. Because you know what's so funny? Both other of those reactions, the parent who decides to just go and join their kid in the values that they have, or they try to guilt them out of those values, they would tell you that they're operating out of love. I'm doing this out of love for them. But real love holds the line on what's true, but still acts with care and genuine concern for that kid. See, it's possible for you to do both. And that's what I would ask you. Do you have the courage to have the values that you have, but to also act with love? And until you say something explicitly different, your love speaks volumes, and it may actually open up your ability to be an influencer where they come to you and ask for your advice. Why? Because you're loving, and it covers a multitude of sins, even when the value choice that they made was wrong. Are you doing that with your kids? I think it'd make a big difference. We have one more week where we're going to talk about this peer-to-peer relationship. I hope you'll come back.